Hi, Nan.
Hi, Lynette.
I'm so glad you're willing to be interviewed. I was so excited when I found out that because I just met you recently through Sandy and Sandy's community and was so surprised that we haven't known you until now because you've been here.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynette. I have been here a long time, over 30 years, and yet in Bellingham, you can meet brand new people in just a few weeks' time. It's really true.
It's happening.
Yeah.
I think elder people now are coming into their own. Everybody is. We're much more willing to be here now, telling our stories to each other. So I'm noticing that.
Yes, I think so. And really, what you're talking about is having positive present conversations. And I do think because of the pandemic and I was home alone for the entire year. And meeting you and Sandy and so many other people in the last few weeks has literally felt like moving to a new town.
Right, me
Mm-hmm.
too. I went to Mexico and I enjoyed it completely, but I'm happy to be back. And I'm amazed at the community that's developing. And you're part of it now, part of our little group, our tribe, whatever we're
I
calling
think tribe is
ourselves.
a good word. I think it is, we have connections for different reasons in our lives, and sometimes it's because we have certain roles and responsibilities, and then when we get to the end of those, just like at the end of the pandemic, there's an opportunity to step out and kind of figure out who you'd like to connect with and what you'd like to be involved with. So
Right.
it's very, very exciting to me.
Well, you're with a lot of exciting people. And I notice you're pretty exciting yourself. So
Well, thank
please
you.
tell us a little bit about you, Nan, so
Well,
we can get to know you.
Thank you, Lynette. And so I'm Nan Hamilton, and I've been in Bellingham since 1990. I've lived a few other places and worked other places. I'm a mother of 5 millennials who have all grown and flown the nest and live in many different places. And now, as an empty nest woman, I am currently working in leadership development, and so I do some amazing work with new emerging leadership teams, and I'm very excited. I was a youth mentor for many years and with my own children, and created educational events and different types of transformative opportunities, and so now I'm taking all that and finding new communities where there's new leaders that want to step up and do new things.
That sounds exciting. Leadership is quite uh, demanding to teach. Not so easy, but when you have a skill for it, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It is, and my training that I went to 3 years ago for a year, I love that it explains we're all leading our own lives. We say that I want to lead my own life, and yet there's a way to be more masterful in how we're leading our life, not just for how we interact with other people or whether we're somebody on the top level having other people follow us, but actually how we're choosing particular things that matter to us right now and then being able to put our full focus into it and be satisfied in a
Right.
shorter period of time.
Well, I'm noticing that you are very skilled, as well as very helpful, as well as very healing. So I'm always delighted, as well as very up.
Thank
So
you.
I love
Thank you,
that,
hon.
all of that, and so I've really enjoyed being with you. And I wanted to find out how your experience of 2020 was, and going into 21, what you might have um, liked about it, not liked about it, and learned, and maybe plans that you made because of it.
That's a beautiful question. We might call it the ups and downs of 2020.
Right.
And I was looking forward to 2020 because I love numbers. I'm a former banker and a teacher, and I thought, wow, 2020, I bet cool stuff's going to happen. And of course, in January, none of us knew how big a thing was going to happen for all of us. But me personally, on New Year's Day, I was doing some soul searching to figure out what I would really want as a person in a brand new chapter, and an idea came to me in a very specific way to find the last pieces of my natural family. So I'm an adoptee, and I was adopted as a tiny child at 4 days old into a family, and all my life I never knew anything, and I was told that my father died before I was born, which was a common piece of information that was given to adoptees. However, when I asked the universe if I could find him, very specific words came to mind, and I wrote them down and signed them. And then within a few weeks, interesting things started to happen. Connections to people that could help me in a very easy and quick manner to perhaps find him. And lo and behold, even after COVID coming through Wuhan, China, and then coming here to Washington State where we are, I found that I had a father still living a week before my birthday at the end of March last year. I also found that I had two sisters and a brother, and that they had all worked all over the world. My father was a global worker on 5 continents, and it really blew my mind. I had lived in a much smaller sphere, happily, and serving and feeling pretty satisfied. However, for me, that really began to erase the old idea of who I thought I was and give me a much larger playing field to explore what I would love to do. So there's many parts to it, and I've shared some of it with you, probably not enough time now. Whenever we find something new, oftentimes it shakes up or releases old things because we need that space for the new thing. And that is what happened to me. My down part last year was really letting go of the end of my adoptive story, because my adoptive family had already passed away. So I was what we call re-orphaned at 59, 60 years old. And for the 4 million adoptees in the United States, it is a very strange journey at the end of being an adoptee, because you many times outlive your family, and then you wonder, where do you come from? So as I began to let go of that, and then as the fall came and I was welcoming in my new family and went to spend a week with them in Pittsburgh, I really had to decide whether I was going to embrace this new thing or try to hold on and recreate the life that I'd known before. And having COVID as I guess you'd call it the sculptor's tool in my life to say, well, we're cutting some things out so you can have something different, then I began to get some ideas about what I would love to do with my experience and the things that I believe have really mattered to me still. And I started to reach out on LinkedIn. And in November, I went from 24 contacts to over 300. And I began to be invited to different kinds of events. We lament a lot of times technology because we don't always understand it, or it feels like it's complicated. But I gotta say, the algorithm gods, sometimes they bring you really good stuff.
The algorithm gods, I like that.
A little bit like Amazon Prime.
Right.
They're there when you ask, and you stay open and you keep your eyes open, you see things. So over a period of a few more months, I was very encouraged about some visions that I had for the future. And then, as you know, I had COVID in December, and I was not in the hospital, but I had a very severe case of COVID, and it took me almost 8 weeks to get over it. And at the end of that, in January, when I was almost at 80% with my inhaler, I got a breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh, no.
So I went through one loss and another, and during COVID, my natural father passed away that I found. So one thing that is probably the biggest gift, even though it was hard at the time, was letting go of everything all at once. And then whatever I had on the other side, I knew belonged to me. So that's kind of how I got to be with Sandy after my cancer surgery about 3 months ago.
Wow. You've gone through a lot.
Feels like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory sometimes.
Recently.
Yeah.
I mean, and the whole thing with your father, meeting him so, how old was he?
He was 92, almost 93, and he was not conscious enough to have a conversation with me, but I did get to go in miraculously into the care center where they weren't even letting hospice in, and spend 15 minutes with him 3 days in a row and experience him. And it's silly, but I never loved my hands because they're man hands, and it turns out that I have my father's hands. Mm-hmm. And one of my sisters really loves that because they meant a lot to her. Yeah. So it's funny what matters to us, when we're in new places.
Well, you said it mattered to you a great deal to be able to be with him, even in that situation. that it really changed your life?
It did. It finished something for me. It gave me answers that I hadn't had anything in the folder for before,
Right.
and that was soul satisfying.
You said he did something globally?
Yes, yeah. So he grew up in the little town of Enumclaw, which is right at the foot of Mount Rainier, and he and his little brother, who's 90, he's still living and he's still working full time. They grew up just as wood boys and would get up in the morning and play in the woods in the summer until the sun went down. At 18, in 1946, he enlisted because the draft was still on. So he and his buddy enlisted for 18 months, and instead he stayed in for many, many years in the Army. And he was in Germany right as the war ended. He was in Korea commanding troops right at the end of the Korean War. He was in Japan when they were rebuilding. He was in Panama when things were just starting to change in Central America in the early 60s. And his last position was he was the assistant attaché to Brazil when they had their new capital there. So one of my sisters was born in Brasilia, in the hospital there. So,
My goodness.
yeah. And I always loved learning history, and I always loved learning about all the countries of the world. I homeschooled my children, and I taught them all the countries of the world, and we always watched the international news. So that felt really good.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so
Not too many families get to watch the international news. I love it.
well, we did get to see Canadian Sesame Street because we live so close to the border right here, you know.
Right.
It was quite an adventure.
So what happened with when you had cancer towards the end of this whole thing? Recently.
Well, what happened was I was alone in my home, and my one daughter came from out of town. She lives in St. Paul now. She came for 2 weeks, and at the end, I had this urge to pack my suitcase. And she was packing her suitcase to go home, and I usually would be pretty sad that she was going back away so far. But this time I was very excited, and I just started putting interesting things in my suitcase. And I just thought, well, I don't know when I'm leaving, but I'm pretty sure I'm going on a trip soon. So I got invited by my sister, my natural sister, to go visit her for her birthday in Pittsburgh. And she said, I want you to be my birthday present and come stay with me and experience my life with me for a week. So I packed it up. She bought me a ticket, and I got on a plane and spent a week with my natural sister. And I was raised by a Norwegian woman, my adoptive mother, 100% Norwegian. And I know many Norwegian recipes and can speak some, but I'm not Norwegian. My ethnicity is Italian, Scottish on my father's side, and Danish, Welsh, Irish on my birth mother's side. So I just embraced my Italian ethnicity with my sister. We went to the big Italian delis in Pittsburgh. We did everything that they did. And one of the most telling things, Lynette, was she has a beautiful little guest room in her house, and it's on the second floor where all the treetops are. Mm-hmm. And one morning I woke up and I had a feeling I'd never had before. It was a feeling like I'd never been adopted.
Oh, isn't that great?
And I don't even know what to call that. I think they call it integration in psychology. But it was a very beautiful thing to feel like that separation had ended inside of me.
Transformation.
Very much so.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what happened with the cancer? Did you just...
It just disappeared.
What happened?
So I had the surgery in early April, and there was some plans to do some follow-up therapies. I was weighing whether to do that when I was at my sister's, and when I came back in mid-May, I was doing a lot of walking. I live right near Whatcom Falls Park, and I was doing a lot of walking to the waterfalls. I started doing that right after COVID to get my strength back in the winter. Even when we had the snow, I would bundle up and put my backpack on and walk up the hill as much as I could. I think that's my Scottish ancestry, the Highlands of Scotland and whatnot.
Right.
So it made me feel very alive.
Well,
to
you've
do
got
that.
Sandy walking.
I did, yes.
That is really an accomplishment.
Even with our hiking poles.
I gotta say.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of those days, I had been coming back in May, and about mid-May, and I followed a path through the baby cemetery where I've walked for 26 years, and I had some new thoughts. And one of them was, what if I opened my heart all the way and never closed it again? And I'm a pretty kind, well, I don't know if I'm kind, but I think I'm a loving person. but I feel like I had to protect myself a lot of my life, or hide myself maybe a little bit. And when that thought came out, I stopped right in the middle of the cemetery, and I just threw my arms open and I said, that's it. I'm going to open my heart, and I'm not going to close it again. And I walked over to Bayview Abbey, which is a beautiful building where you can watch the sunset here in Bellingham, which I've done many times. And I was sitting there quite a while looking at the flowers. I'm a gardener. And a woman drove up. And she took a picture. She got out of her car and took a picture of the sunset. Then she turned around and looked at me. And she got in her car and drove right up to me. I was like, I hope she's going to stop before she hits me. She got out, gave me a beautiful smile, and said, hi, I think I'm supposed to meet you. And her name is Debbie. You know Debbie so well. And Debbie had been driving home but felt the urge to turn in there and just see
And
what the
she
sun
would
was
if she
doing.
felt the urge.
And she's got the urge of creation in her. So we became instant friends. And then over the course of several days, she invited me to the house where she's living, which is a very warm, welcoming place. And I met a woman named Sandy there.
Right.
And then I followed up with Sandy 24 hours later because I have some visions and ideas of how to help emerging leaders. And I thought, since Sandy has worked globally, that maybe she could help mentor me a little bit. So, long story short, we met together and had a brunch in Whatcom Falls Park, and began a fast friendship at that point.
You know, I think I was there when you met Sandy.
I bet you were. There was another person at the table, that first dinner.
Yes.
I think you're right.
I was
We've seen
there.
each other so many times, I kind of forgot.
Well, that
Yes.
house, that I call it the Sylvan House,
Yes.
and Nancy and Debbie and
See.
Sig and everybody, Sally was there. It's an amazing place. It's an emerging little community house or something that is, I don't know.
Open-hearted.
Yeah, it's
Very
great.
open-hearted. Yeah.
It's home of the what is Nancy's
Highest intention.
highest
community.
intention community, and
Yeah.
it is definitely becoming that.
And they are not stopping.
They're not stopping for anything,
That's right.
and I'm so glad they're doing that because it's affecting my life in a very beautiful way. And there are several there, Nancy and Debbie, and also Sig, who are doing Reiki. I also
Yes.
do self-Reiki.
Yes.
And every time something goes wrong with my body now, I call them all up. And
You've
they
got a
do-
team of people.
There's a team, it's a triage immediately, a total Reiki, and I respond to it
Yes.
because I believe in it.
Yes. There's a famous verse that says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor, and a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. That's that power of exponential support, right?
Right.
And I think we all need that right now as
Oh,
we're
we
coming
do.
out of the pandemic and deciding what we want to do, and considering that we could do something different. We could do it
Right.
with different people, you know?
And we are, and it's expanding. And I feel it going out from that house, out to Bellingham, out to the state, out to the nation, out to the world, out to the cosmos.
Absolutely.
I can feel it.
Yeah, we're all united. We were united in something very difficult and something a little frightening and strange. And now we get to be united in whatever we agree we'd like to do together. And I think those doors are wide open.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I
Oh, such a
wanted,
pleasure.
because of time constraints,
Yeah.
wind this up, but I totally enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome,
Yeah.
Lynette. And I appreciate our friendship.
I do too.
Okay, thank you. A dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. In dreams you will lose your heartache. Whatever you wish for, you keep. Have faith in your dreams, and someday your rainbow will come shining through. No matter how your heart's been weeping, once you keep on believing, the dreams that you wish